Perhaps because he got there in the morning, and at the time he came back to life, it was in the midday. He was asking himself, when did I got here? I said, I now looked, because at the time he came back to life, it was thirsty. He checked his water, it was still what? As fresh as the way he brought it, even though he had died for 100 years. His food, Allah put the power for decay into suspension. His food was still as fresh as the way he brought it. But just looking the other way, he looked at his donkey. What he found was the skeleton. It had reduced into bones. And before his very eyes, Allah brought the bones together, fleshed it, and breathed life into it. And he saw it coming back to life. And he shouted, now I know that my God has capability to do all things. So we must remove that doubt out of our mind. Number 4. I've said about that. We should denounce all mundane powers and authorities. Number 5. Seek favors of Almighty Allah alone. Number 6. Listen to your heart. Number 7. Let me open your mind and observe. Let me, on this, when I said listen to yourself, when man is under stress, or when man is seeking for Allah's help, Allah will not in any way come down from the high heavens to assist. Let me just use an analogy. Today, Allah's mercies is always open, regardless of how gargantuan the sins you have committed. The Quran says, Ya ibadiya alladhi asrafu ala anfusihim la taqnatu min rahmatillah inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'an. Yeah. Let me use the analogy of the story of Adil and Qabil in the Quran. You remember the story of the sons of Prophet Adam in Surah Al-Ma'idah. After Qabil killed his brother Adil, Qabil was a murderer. But because he was observant, Allah did not even abandon him as a murderer. Allah had to raise a crowd, a small bird. 2 birds, they came before him. One killed the other. And after killing the other, used the beak of his mouth to, as it were, clear the ground and put the other brother that died into it and clear it, to show to Qabil how to bury his brother. What I'm trying to say, if Allah is merciful to the murderer, and so that his act of murder will not afflict society, Allah is ready to assist anybody, only if we can clearly observe and open our ears to see things around us. We should be positive and then very patient. So quite often, let me also use myself as an analogy now. I remember when I left Lagos State University, one of my roommate and my very close, the closest companion I had was Abdulatif Mobalade, who is an associate professor now. Both of us lost the ambition of coming back to the university to serve. But because we had the same degree, as Allah will have it, after our service, he was able to get himself employed in the university. I still lost the idea. But because I'm not a Lagosian, I was not ready to doctor the boy and said I'm a Lagosian. But I put my trust in Allah. That thing came 20 years after I left LASU. I left LASU in 1989. I got appointed in 2009. And it came at the point where I didn't even know. I had almost lost hope, but because I felt that no, it is possible. And the day I got the job, it was just within 5 minutes. Somebody listened to my lecture on Arafat Day 2008. I said, where did you lecture? I said, no. I managed nurse. I said, eh? I said, yeah, I managed nurse. I said, no. You are fit to be a lecturer in the university. He gave me a card, Dr. Naim Ekemode. And I got to the university. I met Latif Hussein as I'm trying to look for the word to use for Professor Latif Hussein. Well, when I come there, he said, he had a chat with me and he said, where have you been? I said, I've been around. He said, you are the kind of person I want here. Take this paper, write your application. And there I was just employed. What I'm trying to say,
Not
it took 20 years.
Not 20 copies.
Yeah, not 20 copies, no. In fact, the paper that with which I wrote the application was a paper that he gave to me by himself. And after he gave it to me, he called Professor Muhibuddin, who was my HOD at that point in time, that give me a one word about Mustapha. And I wouldn't want to say what he said about me, for reasons of being charged for personal aggrandizement. He also called Professor Follow, who was the dean. He came and said, talk about this guy. He also mentioned, so what I'm trying to say, I have to wait for 20 years. 20 years for a job that some of my colleagues who are now professors. Alhamdulillah, what I'm trying to say in essence is that we should be patient. In the words of Prophet Yaqub in the Quran, he said, As-sabru jameel. Prayer is most befitting and beautiful. We should also cultivate good company. We should never search for enemies. The Quran says, Wallahu ya'lamu bi'adaikum wa kafa billahi waliyan wa kafa billahi nasira. Let me end my talk by this last one, which I call preparing for the worst. Every supplicant should always put, our supplication is between, it should be between what? Fear and hope. The hope that this prayer will be answered, and the fear that our God is fa'alun. He has rights to decide the way he likes, and that's what I call preparing for the worst. Because the power controlling this cosmic order is beyond the control of man. The best or the most desirable may not be attainable at all times after much struggle. He must then prepare his mind to accept whatever comes his way, eventually with philosophical calmness, believing that with God all things are possible. Man's consolation. The worst we are referring here is the worst in the predisposition of man to issues as it affects him directly. But definitely it is not the worst in the estimation and assessment of Allah. The worst in this case is the final judgment of Allah, which does not tally with the expectation of man. Yet he must accept it for him to have peace of mind. Sheikh Arifat Sheikh Abdullah Al-Lori, Rahimahullah, Babadawa wákà yẹn tí yẹn bá ń da kó má da lórí àwọn kó má fi sí wákà yẹn kó má jó kó gbà bẹ́ẹ̀. Bàbá ní ká gbà fọ́lọ́run lè sinmi o, ká gbà fọ́lọ́run lè sinmi, kádàrá ò ṣe kọ̀ láìka, ká gbà fọ́lọ́run. Ìyẹn ni pé àyíká fọ́lọ́run ìyọnu ní o. Ìyọnu ní o. Bí o bá gbà fọ́lọ́run ìyọnu ní. And that's why I'm saying here that, for instance, what is the worst scenario for a believer if you have somebody amongst us here who is battling to save and keep his job? The worst that can happen is the termination of your appointment. Must he then seek to keep that job at all costs, even though he does not know what Allah has in plan for him? For instance, I said lots of job. Okay. For instance, what is the size? What is okay? Lots of the job, for instance, those seem like a worse scenario for somebody who wants to give his job, but maybe a source of elevation and progress to the victim. How many are those general managers of today, MDs and CEOs, whose rise to prominence is on the platform of humiliation they receive from the heads of their previous jobs? How many are those who are landlords today, courtesy of the tribulations they suffered in the hands of their previous landlord as tenants? In the same vein, the worst that a sick believer should prepare his mind to confront is the inevitable end, death. Should a man seek every crooked means out of a deteriorating earth for the reasons of not wanting to die, and eventually mortgage his faith and make his meeting Allah difficult? Death, sickness, loss of job, disappointment, deprivation, and the likes are worst scenarios to man, but they are not inherently evil, as they are often the passageway to attainment of greater heights. even to die as a result of affliction, though not desirable by any mortal, is not an evil thing, but the route through which eternal felicitation is achieved. No wonder the Quran says that al-fitna ashaddu min al-qatl. Trial and tribulation and battle is worse than death. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر لي ولكم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Let us say Jazakallahu khairan. Jazakallahu khairan. Jazakallahu khairan. Allah accept it as ibadat from our brother, Dr. Mustapha Bello.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to quickly pass this information to us at the national level. June 14, we had our conference. We have now had the opportunity of expressing our gratitude to members of the district, apart from supporting us financially by paying their subscription on time and adequately. The members came out massively from Lagos district, and those of us from the national body want to appreciate members of the district for the support. May Almighty Allah continue to support every one of us. And the second day we had the conference, more or less, and we had new executives in place. My humble self was returned as the national admin from the district, and if there was no support from the Lagos district, I would not have been returned. We also have the Secretary General now, also from the district, in the person of Engineer Usrah. Yes, he's a veteran. The video past secretary had his tenure, lapsing because of 2 terms exactly, his 2 term tenure. So not because of anything, but because of the constitutional limitation.
An answer session. Let us start by show of hands. So we have an idea how many people want to ask. Let me start with the brothers. Senior Abbas 1, Senior Fajimita 2, 3, 4, 5 brothers. That's your numbers. Amira 6, Alaja Yagbaji 7, 8, 9. I think we'll take those 9 and see where we are. So please note your number. We'll take all the questions so that Dr. Bello gets to note them, especially if there are repeat ones there, and then we'll go to answer. Senior Abbas.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. May Allah reward our lecturer abundantly. I have been having some running arguments with some imams on the issue of dua format. There are some recommended adhkar or dua by prophets like Asibnullah, Alhamdi, 100, and things like that. The view of some imams is that anybody who exceeds those figures, 100 or 3, for any dua is kufu. That can't do any dua formula more than 100 or those 1 or 3. My question is, the contents of dua, must it follow a particular template, or you put dua as, because there are a lot of, like us now, maybe around 500 or 300 people here, the particular things we want for Allah may not be exactly the same thing. Now, the template, must it be exactly according to the sunnah or particular prayer of prophets or divine prayer, or you have a freedom to formulate or craft your own content of dua? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I adopt the compliments to our lecturer today. My question seems to be similar to that of Senior Abbas. In our own group also, or Usrah group, there's also a contention among us, particularly the junior ones, about whether it is allowed for us when we want to do dua and we use Quran or reading the whole Quran or parts of the Quran, according to some of them, it is not sunnatic. Let me use that word.
They mentioned in lecture something like the conditions for establishment of dua are related to those for the establishment of salah. I want to be sure if I heard that clearly, and if I did, what do you mean by that?
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, in your terrible narration, that's the story that you narrated between you and then the leader of Shamsuddin. It was terrible to me, anyway. I mean, especially your encounter. Well, when the journey stopped, you seek refuge somewhere. During the narration, you did not mention what went on or what happened between you and then the leader of Shamsuddin. That's the first aspect of my question. Then the second aspect is that from your narration, I assume that definitely that you parted with a Shamsuddin group and then their leader as far as the challenge that you were facing was concerned. Then I also confirm from the narration that you now resorted to exclusive prayer. I mean, for as the solution to the problem. You also confirm that. Now, for the benefit of our members and of course the listeners, can you avail us the opportunity talking about the content and then the manner of the prayer you now resorted to, as solution to the problem? Salam alaikum.
Now, my own questions are in the lectures. We have been able to see, we have noted that in the efficacies of faith, there are different, the angles of getting our supplications answered, the angle of the qadar, and the angle of the fa'alu liman yurid. Meaning that if I seek what I want from Allah, my understanding is that once I get it, Allah has answered my prayer. Once I do not get what I want, it's been declined. Allah is not under any obligation to accede to the request of anybody at any particular time. So, if I pray, I get it, you say Allah has answered. If I pray, I don't get it, you say yes, it may not be in your calendar. I pray, I don't get it, you say Allah has just displayed which is the supreme. Then my question is, what then is the necessity of supplicating or giving prayer when you can actually do and Allah may not give it because He has His own, whether you have your predestination of what to follow, or whether Allah has a way of just manifesting a superiority on you, then what is the need, what is the necessity in prayer? That's the question.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My questions are two. The first one is it permissible for Muslims to seek the help of other Muslims to make requests from Allah? Not necessarily prayer contractor, but your own Muslim brothers and sisters. Can you ask them to help you beg Allah for what you need? Then the second one is it permissible for us to have joint prayer section? For example, a prayer for peace in Nigeria. Can we have it together? Because we are having different controversies. Some people are saying, no, if you want to pray in your home, pray on your own. You don't need to come together and say you want to pray for peace or you want to pray for this or that. So we want the lecturer to enlighten us better. Thank you.
I want to use this opportunity to congratulate the lecturer of the day for your attainment of your doctorate degree. Congratulations. I also want to, like Amira has said, due to a lot of controversy on the issue of collective prayers these days, can you still recommend people coming together to pray? For example, as our children are getting married, Before now, what we do is organize a joint prayer for them. But the idea, this way, that way, not allowed because it is not the sunnah of the prophet will not encourage it. Should we go for it? Because we also have the sayings that encourage collective actions in Islam. Assalamu alaikum.
My questions are two. The first one, when we want to talk about purity, after you might have observed your salat, and maybe you are now counting your rosaries, and you emit gas, do you go to perform further ablution? One. Number two is not on the topic of today. Number two is a general question. You are in a bank, for example. Women, you find out that maybe one of your children has taken your biro, and you now ask for biro from the banking hall, somebody from the banking hall. But after you have finished, you can't see the person again. What do you do with that biro? That is my question. Thank you.
I have questions and comments. I'll start with my comments on today's lecturer, Brother Mustapha Bello. Alhamdulillah, I don't know, I'm extraordinarily happy today. The last time we saw was about something years ago, during MSS time. Yewa High School. It was Yewa High School there. That now made me to have something in mind. I think we should have something serious to do about the present day MSS. If you look at all of us here, we are one way or the other, wherever we find ourselves, we are igigongo. Whether in our places of work, in our community, or wherever we are, that's what I've observed. Those of us that are passed through these MSS, we have become something, big. So I don't think we should just leave this MSS the way it is. I know the thing is, the way it was where our own time then. So, Brother Mustapha, congratulations, as Sister Adebayo has said. We are now continuing to put more baraka in your endeavors. Secondly, I know from the lecture on Usrah he has given us, many of us also have experiences from what are by one way or the other, at one time or the other, that have happened to us. But there's something that happened to me at one time that I feel like to share with us. There was a time I wanted to travel out. I've already gotten my visa, I've bought my tickets, and my passport, I thought I should be where I normally keep it now. About 3 days to the time, I said, don't let me think for granted, let me look for this passport. I went to where I thought it was, I couldn't find it. What happened? The second day, I couldn't find this passport. I said, and there's no way I can travel without this passport. From the subuhi of that second day, I started praying. Allah, wherever this thing is, let me see it. There's no way I can travel without this passport. Till the late evening of that day, I couldn't find this passport. And I was to travel the following day. Hey! And now, what do I do? At that time, my husband was not around. And I didn't want to bother him with that. Where he was. After my Isha, and I said I couldn't sleep. All my children had slept. And I sat on the bed. Allah, please, whatever wrong I've done, all this while in my life, please forgive me. Then it was, I know this passport is inside the corner of this suit. Only that I can't remember where it is. I said, I'm sorry, I was feeling sleepy. When I remember I have not got it, because I woke up again, this passport. Something I just occurred to me. I said, Allah, I worship you in my own little way. From the time I discovered you, when we were in MSS, till this present night, I know no matter how small, I would have done one good thing or the other, that which I myself, don't even not know. Which you know. For the sake of that thing, wherever this passport is, I want you to direct me. I just said that and went to sleep. During the night, something is like somebody woke me up. And my mind said, go and check inside that nylon. There's a particular nylon where I used to keep my children. You know we jealous. My children, school things. I covered it so that they will not know the thing, so that they will not be going there to take it behind you. Honestly, that's where I found this. But I don't know. The thing, since then, anytime I remember that incident, I say, Allah, continue to direct my path towards the doing of things that you always value. And lastly, my question. I'm the last person I have to talk Dr. Mustapha, my question. Prayer. I like this, I love it so much. I don't know, I just pray that it's not going to issue for me because I believe there is nothing that can be achieved without prayer. But with all others have been saying about this is the way to go about prayer, this is not the way to go about it, I don't know. But there is something that is touching my heart that during the nights I couldn't sleep well. Something has happened to one of us. And what I had in mind before coming here was, hey, I don't know, maybe I have to share this thing with some people so that they will join me in praying so that this thing that is not a pleasant thing, that's allowed to remove this thing from us. And I said that whenever they say prayer is not something, it's something you just do by yourself now. How do I go about it? If I think I know how to pray, there's some people that will be better than me before Allah. If they join me or they assist me, in supplicating to Allah, I think this prayer will, get answered on time. So I'm confused. Allah continue to guide the person.
Let me say that I do not claim to know, to be an expert. If I tell people, even when I teach in the classroom, I am more of a theologian than a jurist. And that is why quite often I don't like engaging in ear-splitting arguments with people. Sometimes your religion has to be personalized. I've discovered that we are living in a world that two issues are definitely religion now. One is religious tribalism, people paying lip service to religion, and the other one is religious extremism. And this extremism has a base. Is ideological. And that's why quite often we find that what we're having that is engulfing the Muslim world today is because of most of the ear-splitting arguments that people have degenerated to the extent that people question the ways of the people of the past and want to present their understanding of Islam today as being the best for us. May Allah forgive all of us if we have fallen into that error. Let me start by saying that from my sister, my very good sister, what is said happened to her. There is a verse of the Quran, Quran 5, verse Surah Al-Ma'idah, Quran 5, verse 35. It's also one of the ways that one can employ if you are in extreme difficulty. You are looking for something and you are in extreme difficulty. That verse says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wabtaghu ilayhi al-wasila wajahidu fi sabilihi la'allakum tuflihun. Said, O Muslims, fear, be conscious of Allah and seek a means of approach towards Allah. If you remember, there's a story in the book of the Hadith where the Prophet narrated the story of 3 brothers of the cave who were trapped in the cave in a difficult night. And because they couldn't come out, one of them now suggested, let us now think of what we thought we have done, just to please Allah. I'm sure you know the story very well. So it is also important for us, we should seek a means of approach to Allah. And that means that we must do things just for the sake of Allah. In tí yẹn fẹ́ fi sọ́kọ́ lọ́wọ́, kì í ṣe bá tí yẹn fi sọ pé wá sí companion torí pé kábẹ́ lè gbà ó. Ẹlòmíì ló lọ sí tìka tó lọ ṣe, nítorí pé ti fún náà kàní kan kó lọ ṣe ni. Kì í ṣe tó lọ fi lè bá dà. So we must ask ourselves, why do we do things? So it is one thing we can use that will guide us to come out of difficulty. As regards joint prayers, there is a verse in Surah to Nisa, I think Quran 4 verse 2 or 3. Allah says, Ta'awanu ala al-birri wa taqwa wa la ta'awanu ala al-ismi wa udwan. You see, there is a tradition of the time of prayer where the Prophet talked about, he said, if Allah wants to show the utmost goodness to somebody, if Allah wants to show utmost goodness to somebody, yufaqihuhu fid-din. Allah will give him grand understanding of the religion. People should not assume that because of the use of the word fiqh there is restricted to understanding of jurisprudence. No. It's a grand understanding of religion. So there is nothing wrong to enlist the support of somebody. In fact, do you know that one of the rights for a newborn child is what is called tahanik. Tahanik is when the child is born. The Prophet performed it on Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who was the son of the elder sister of Aisha, the other Anna Asma. When Abdullah ibn Zubayr was born, they brought him to the Prophet. And the Prophet threw Dave, and then he did Davidu. Over to he thought Davidu here, CNO Abdullah Zubayr, official. And that's why for as long as Abdullah Zubayr lived, everybody loved him just as like they loved the Prophet. Njọ́ tí Ajad bin Yusuf tó fẹ́ pa Abdullah Zubayr ní Makkah, níjọ́ náà, it took the whole of the burn the entire Makkah down. That is not what I'm trying to say. Wípé nínú tradition Ànábì, a lè ṣe tàdíkì láàrin wá ń sìn. Tí bá mọ̀ pé Ajad bin Salam, ẹ̀mí mi sọ fún mi pé máa yìí mo fẹ́ràn wọn. Ẹ̀mí mi dẹ̀ gbà ní pé ẹni Ọlọ́run. Mi sọ pé àfa ọ̀tọ̀ ẹni lọ́wọ́ ọ̀tọ̀ o. Ẹni Ọlọ́run ni tí n bá bí ọmọ abọ́mọ mo lè gbé fún wọn. Ẹ bá mi ṣe tàdíkì fún. Wọ́n á jẹ Dàbídù, wọ́n á fi ìtọ́ ẹ̀ sí páílẹ̀tì ọmọ yẹn fi àlùbáríkà sí. Àwọn bàbá tó bẹ̀ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wá ṣe fà wá. Ìṣe tí wọ́n yẹ fà á àlùbáríkà, àwọn bàbá yìí là ń criticize lẹ́nu. Ọlọ́run sọ fún wa pé alladhina sabaquna bil iman, ẹ ṣe kí ni o, ẹ tọrọ àforíjì fún wọn ni. Torí ìṣìlú ló wà ń ta ọ̀tá náà sọ káàkiri o. Èmi ń bá wọn dá sí torí pé sometimes like I said, I don't have the time. Joint prayer, I feel it is allowed. Tàlàwà fẹ́ bá ṣe òun ló kù. Níbo la fẹ́ ti ṣe ló kù. It is not the rightness of it, but how right do we do it? And if anybody wants to classify anything as bid'ah in the language of Afai, Abul Hasan Ali al-Ash'ari, ó ní gbogbo ẹni tí ó pè kankan ní bid'ah, ó gbọ́dọ̀ mú expressive ways of the prophet wá. Táwọn bí fi classify pé ìṣesí yìí ó bid'ah ni. Ẹni tó bá